All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's open forum. Today we have a very not too exciting, but stuff you need to know about the buyer brokerage agreements, when and why to use them in Florida. We are coming up on the second anniversary of these requirements. Time has flown by. 2 years ago, we were all freaked out. What's going to happen? We're never going to get paid again for helping buyers, etc. But now we know better, right? Buyers agents are making more than they ever made before, percentage-wise on these deals. And you can negotiate your commission now. The difficult part, of course, is talking to the buyers, and you guys have not had. We were very scared of that, and you guys have not had a hard time with that very much at all. So, but what I would like to do is talk about what we're going to talk about today is how to use them, when to use them, why to use them, how to use the different forms in what situations, and also, which may make it a little easier for you as well, but also how to sell it to them. How to present the offer of representation to the buyer, the potential buyer. All right, so let's get started with this. You guys, I hope you guys are excited. Here we go. All right, let me scroll down. All right, what agents need to know: the timing. A written buyer agreement is required before touring a home when the agent is working with the buyer. You guys know that one pretty well, but it's before touring the home. Okay. Form choice. There are 3 forms, as you guys know, we've been over before, but I'll do it again: exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, showing agreement, and property pre-touring agreement. They have different things they do to solve different problems, and we'll get into those later. Compensation clarity. Compensation must be clear, objective, and not open-ended or tied to whatever the seller offers. Do not turn them in blank where it says compensation. We get a lot of that. A lot of them say, or blank where it says compensation. You guys, you might as well not have one at all. It doesn't say anything or do anything. It has to have an amount there, and we're going to get a little further into that. Conversation skill. The agreement should feel like professional preparation, not a surprise document at the front door. Sometimes that's necessary, I know, to meet them at the property and have them sign it out by the street, but let's get this done ahead of time. I think a lot of it is you guys are a little bit afraid that they won't sign it if you're not in front of a property that they want to see. So just know that you're going to get a better response. You're going to get more trust. You're going to get more sales out of presenting it ahead of time. You don't want to ambush. That creates no trust whatsoever if you get someone that says, "Oh, you got to sign this before we go in," and you haven't discussed it before. And we talk about this all the time. We are dealing with adults, and we have to inform and educate our clients, our consumers that they use now, our consumers. We have to inform and educate them, and we tell them, look, you're a grown up and you're signing legal documents. Well, this hurts our trust with them if we show up with a document and say, you got to sign this right now. Don't worry about reading it. It just says you're going to work with me. Right? Because we're sitting there wanting to go in the house. We got there 2 minutes before our 5 o'clock showing, and they've never seen this document before. Now I want them to sign it before we go in. Does that sound like somebody you guys would trust? Tell me in the chat, would you trust somebody who does something like that to you? Before you go to the car dealership, before you test drive this car, you got to sign something here that says you're going to work with me on cars or whatever car you buy. Even if you don't buy this car, you're going to buy, right? We're not building trust when we do that. That's an ambush. And nobody likes it. They'll probably do it because they're going to be outside that house, but they're the first chance they get to work with somebody else, they will. Okay, the core rule: sign before touring. This was the whole thing was about. If you're working with a buyer, get the written buyer agreement before the buyer tours a residential property. The whole point of this with the settlement that occurred, the lawsuit that occurred in the settlement that followed, was that buyers recognize that they're going to have to pay you. That was the idea of it. And of course, we're going to try to get concessions from the seller. Most of the time they're offering it. Sometimes they're not, but we're going to try to get concessions from them to cover that. But the buyer does owe you 3%, 2.5%, whatever you put in that agreement. And what they wanted us to do when they made this settlement, what the Department of Justice back then wanted us to do, was to inform the buyer that all, as you see on every form now, all commissions are negotiable, and that they're going to be responsible for our commission as the buyer's agent. So that's why you can't leave it blank. You can't do whatever. You can't just say, I'll get the seller to cover it. Even if that's your intention, even if your intention is they sign something at 3% and you're only going to take 2, if that's all the seller will give you, that's fine, but you can't tell them that up front. Touring includes in-person access and live virtual tours where the agent enters the property for the buyer. You guys have asked that before. What if we're doing a tour for them? If you're doing a tour for them, you have to have one. If you do a tour, let's say you're a luxury agent and there's only 5 luxury homes for sale in this area. If you're just doing one in general, like you've done one for your social media, you've gone through and viewed this property and you ask the listing agent, can I come take a video? You can share that video with whomever you want. But if you go there with the intention of doing it for, Bob and Sally up in Massachusetts, and you want to send them this video, they've asked for this video and you're going to send it to them for the purpose of them, then you're supposed to have one of these signed before you do that. The rule applies to residential property 1 to 4 dwelling units. The agreement does not have to be exclusive, long-term, or intimidating. It does have to be signed before the tour. And we'll get into some of the other ones. Sign, then show. All right. Why the agreement matters. Transparency. The buyer knows what services are being provided and how the brokerage expects to be compensated. I recommend with this form, like you do any form, you build the value in yourself, and you show what you're going to be doing for them, and you show what they're going to be doing for you, and what they're promising. Some of the things on the form they're promising is to not work with other agents while they have you, and they realize that they have to pay you on any property that is brought to their attention by anyone during this time. So they can't fire you and go show a property or go buy a property that you showed them. They also can't buy one that you sent to them. They can't buy one that they found on Zillow and sent to you, because that is a property that came to their attention during this thing. They didn't have to see it. They didn't have to write the thing. They still owe you 3% or 2.5%, whatever's on your agreement. All right. And I love that. I see mostly 3%, and I love that. You might as well put 3 on there and go for it. Authority. The agent can clearly act for the buyer, schedule, advise, negotiate, and present offers. Protection. The brokerage avoids ambiguity, procuring cause fights and compensation surprises. That what I just told you, I got a little bit ahead of myself with the other one. What I just told you is, in the old days, we'd had to fight for procuring cause, right? Even if I showed the property, but then you went and worked with Everett and got Everett to write the contract, I'm not the procuring cause. The procuring cause legally, I might win a fight at Aura or one of the boards about it, but the procuring cause legally, like for commercial real estate, I have to show them the property and presented a contract that is acceptable to the seller. So that's a ready, willing, and able buyer. If I present a contract, and previously, if I showed a property to you, to a client, and then I presented an offer, and the offer, they wanted 500,000 and my client would only go to 475. And they negotiated, they come down to 490 and he would only go up to 480. And then he walked away. And then later on, he buys the property. He contacts Everett and he goes and buys the property. I'm not the procuring cause. I couldn't get my client to come to an agreement. That is not a ready, willing, and able. He was not willing, maybe not able, but he definitely was not willing to buy the property at the price they wanted. Everett takes him back to the property, writes a contract, and gets him up to 490, and it's acceptable. Then Everett's a procuring cause, and I wasn't. But now, if I have them under an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement or a showing agreement for that property, that is, if they buy it anytime within the tail of my agreement, 90 days or whatever it is after my agreement runs out, then they were my client. They owe me, as well as if they signed something with Everett and worked with him after that, then they owe him too. So these are, like I said, these are grown-ups signing legal documents. So they owe you the money. That's, and the beauty of this, and we're going to get a little bit more into that too. The beauty of this now is that they owe me 3%. In the old days, I could not argue for more commission with the seller because that was not in my buyer's interest. Now it is in my buyer's interest. It is completely ethical and legal for me to negotiate for the seller to pay that 3% because the buyer owes it to me. So I'm working on behalf of the buyer. The buyer's going to have to pay me that 3%, right? If they don't offer any, then the buyer owes me 3% or whatever's on our agreement. If they offer 1%, the buyer owes me the other 2%, right? Because, and if I'm negotiating, they're offering 2% and I want 3%, I'm working on behalf of my buyer to get that 3%. Otherwise, the buyer would owe me that 1%. So And yes, you can let them slide, but they do technically owe it to you. These are, like I said, these are grown-ups signing grown-up documents that are legal, binding. Okay. Professionalism. It turns, can you show me this house, into a real buyer consultation. It sets expectations before access. Guys, this is how when we did this 2 years ago, Carissa came on here and talked to you about this as well. She said, this is actually going to be good for you. We're going to turn this into a good thing. It absolutely has become that. So can you show me this house used to be, I'm just going to use you for 3 or 4 showings and then go work with somebody, whoever is available next time I want to see a house, right? Or whoever I click on Zillow or whatever and go see their listing. But now it is, you're turning yourself into their advisor. You are becoming legally their advisor on purchasing a house, but you also gives you this opportunity to go through this document. This document, instead of being an ambush at the front door, this document can cement you as their expert, as their advisor. That's what you need to be doing to create trust. So instead of, we're not just glorified lockbox openers, we actually advise you through the process. And now it is legal and binding, and to have this conversation with them and get them to sign. Well, it was like that. And I used to tell you guys to use the buyer brokerage agreement before, but now it actually has teeth. And before it just was, people would still steal your client before, and it wasn't as locked up as it is now. Now it is very locked up. It has teeth, and it's designed to get us paid. Okay, the strategy. It forces the agent to discuss price range, motivation, financing, timing, all this stuff. Beautiful. That's what I was just trying to say. It gets them talking. Not just, I want to see a house. I want to see a house. I want to see how, but just trying to get an idea. You're going to get them. You're going to get why they want to buy. You're going to get all their hot buttons. They're going to give you everything you need to sell them. Okay. The Florida angle. Agreement does not equal automatic agency. This is kind of the nuts and bolts, the boring part of it. But the Florida commonly uses a transaction brokerage unless another relationship is established in writing. That is one of the 4 things they teach you in real estate school that you really kind of need to remember, is that you are assumed to be a transaction broker relationship in Florida. Buyer agreement documents the working relationship and compensation terms. It does not automatically mean every relationship is single agency, obviously. Agents still need the correct brokerage relationship disclosures and must avoid promising duties they are not providing. Do not give them, you don't want to do the whole transition to transaction and all that stuff. Do not give them single agency promises. Keep the conversation simple. This explains how I help you and how compensation works before we start opening doors. Keep it simple, present your value, and let them know this explains how I help you. This is all of our expectations before we start opening doors. All right, let's talk about the different forms. The exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, best when your buyer is choosing. Okay, first of all, it's best. They could have stopped there. It's the best one. It locks the client to you for a specific amount of time, regardless of what property they end up buying or want to buy. They can change their mind, etc. Like I've told you guys on there, we had a little issue before when someone put a particular, like 3 towns on there. The buyer was priced out of those 3 towns, and so they ended up going down to I think Haines City or somewhere, and they argued, the other agent, and they met another agent down there, and the other agent argued that your agreement was only good for those 3 towns. Put Central Florida, put whatever area you're in, the greater area, greater Tampa area, greater Orlando metro area, whatever you want to do. And then that's much harder to argue. But if you put 1 town, and you want to listen to them, and you want to do all this stuff, and you want to say, yeah, look, I know you guys are looking for a big backyard. You're looking for a great school district. You're looking for whatever. You want to be on the beach. You want to be whatever it is that they want to be. But just put greater Tampa, greater Orlando, the west coast of Florida, anything, something like that, Central Florida, whatever you want to do, but make it big and broad, because people get priced out of areas, people change their minds, etc. So do that. Best when the buyer is choosing your brokerage as a representative for a defined term, area, property type. Consumer and brokerage are bound for a specified time. So EBBA is time. They are your client. And what I want you to do, guys, the reason I love that one so much is I want you to have these conversations with them and cement yourself as their agent for this amount of time. So you are going to have a consultation with them where you go over this buyer brokerage agreement. That is your appointment. That is your time with them. It is required by your brokerage. It's required by the law, whatever settlement law rule things that we have is required by rule. You have to have this. Use it as an excuse to sit down and do it, right? And Jeanette, you're right. Use the transaction broker EBBA because you never know when you're going to run into another Florida Realty investment agent out there. There are lots of you, and we guys run into each other. Like Jeanette can tell you a couple times a month when you don't even plan to work with another FRI agent, you run into them because they have a good listing somewhere. So keep that in mind. All right, showing agreement, non-exclusive, useful for one or more specified properties when the buyer is not ready for a broader commitment. I don't like these. They're a little weaker. A lot of times they want to see stuff that they're not, and they're only bound to the properties that you put on there. If you get somebody who's really fighting you on it and says, look, I just want to see these 5 properties this weekend, then they can do this. They can do this showing agreement. Okay. And that lists those properties. And if you're at those properties and they send you some more, I want to see that one too. You need to add that to the list. Okay. So there's a place to write down all these properties on the showing agreement. There's lines there to fill out, and you just list all the properties they possibly want to see. Okay. The pre-touring agreement. This one is the lightest pre-tour option, useful when the buyer wants to see a property before deciding whether to work with you further. Consumer and brokerage are very loosely bound. Very loosely. It has words like may and might and stuff like that in there. You guys have seen me pick that document apart before. It is kind of funny, actually. You know, the consumer may choose to work with this agent, and they might want to pay them 3% or something like that. So FRI agents, you can use any form that you choose, but you must know the difference in content and strength. Okay, you have to know what it says and when to use it and why. Use the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, guys. There's very few reasons that you shouldn't be able to use this. Okay. All right. Quick decision tree. Are we working with the buyer? Identifying property, arranging a showing, advising, negotiating, or preparing and presenting an offer. Will anyone tour a 1 to 4 unit home in person or live virtual where an agent enters the property on the buyer's behalf? So that has to be on their behalf. Again, obviously you don't need one if you're just shooting it for your social media and whatever, or you take pictures of something because you did a showing with someone else. You can share those pictures with them, but because you didn't take them for them. You had to have an agreement when you showed it to. If I take a showing today, I have to have an agreement with them. But if I video some things and stuff like that, and then I get a call, somebody, hey, do you have anything in this neighborhood? And I send them that, I didn't have to have an agreement for that. Use the right agreement. We just talked about that. No agreement needed. General factual questions, casual conversations, interviewing the agent, or listing agent open house activity for the seller only. So you guys know open houses, you don't need it to show them around. You need it when you present the offer. If you're going to present an offer or discuss terms like that, then you need it because you're representing them now. So if you're going to represent them or you're going to present an offer on their behalf, you are representing them to some degree, and you're going to need the agreement then. So I've told you guys that before you write a contract for them, they need to have an agreement with you then. And it can just be for that one property. That's when I would use a showing agreement. If I'm sitting in my open house, they come in, they want to write an offer, or they contact you off of Zillow or whatever as the listing agent, and you show them the house. You didn't need one to show them the house. You do need one when you start talking terms of a contract. Okay. Once your agent crosses into buyer services and touring, stop and get the proper agreement signed first. There you go. All right. How to explain it to buyers. Use this script before first showing, something like that. Okay. Before I show you homes, Florida practice now requires us to put our working relationship in writing. This does not mean you are stuck forever. It simply clarifies what I'm doing for you, how long the agreement lasts, what properties it covers, and how compensation will work. My goal is to make sure there are no surprises before we start looking at homes. Okay. Your tone, calm, normal, professional. Avoid blaming my, legal made me do this. Lead with clarity, service, and transparency. Guys, you always want to transparency. You always want to offer something. Always let them know you're offering something. You're not just taking. You're offering. Go over, guys, learn the duties that you have here and be able to list a couple of them. I would add that to this. This talks about this simply clarifies what I'm doing for you, like this and this and this. Okay, get some things together where you're selling it and they're saying, oh, okay, good. So there's value there, right? And all I have to do is sign a form. You don't need any money today. Nope. Okay. The compensation conversation. The buyer agreement must clearly state how your brokerage is compensated. Do not write vague terms such as whatever the seller offers or a broad range. You cannot do that. We've discussed this many times, and some of you guys have tried this and said seller will pay or something in that form. You can't do that. Buyer brokerage compensation remains negotiable and can be requested from the seller or listing brokerage outside the MLS where permitted. Trained agents. Okay, we've talked about that before. Can the seller do that? It can be requested. You do not have to show it to them. A lot of builders want to see them, and that's fine. If you look, sellers set the rules. So if they, like we've talked about before, if they put on the MLS, only as is offers considered, then write it on an as is. If they say, whatever it is that they say, then that's what you have to deal with. If they say we absolutely positively will not pay commission, then there's nothing you can do about that. You don't argue with them. I mean, you can try to still send your offer with commission, but otherwise, I mean, you got to go to your buyer for it, and you got to notify your buyer ahead of time. Look, they're not going to do that. So we're going to go in at a lower price, but you're going to have to pay me. Train agents to explain the buyer's responsibility and the strategies for requesting seller side help. That is a note from me to do. And we'll talk about all that. Get loaded up in the question box, in the chat box. Anything you want to talk about after, go ahead and start loading those questions up. When agreement is usually not needed yet, an open house visitor, like we talked about. General questions: what's the square footage? What are your services? How does the process work? Casual conversation. Obviously, that's never for general questions that you like. What is the square foot? If something's public record, you can have an unlicensed assistant work an open house. They just can't say anything about what a great neighborhood it is or anything else, but they can tell them, yes, it's 2,412 square feet. It's got 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, whatever it is. Great conversation, casual conversation. Unplanned general conversation does not involve confidential information, offers, or negotiations. If you're hanging out at Chick-fil-A and somebody talks to you about real estate, you don't have to have anything signed with them. Marketing only. You are marketing yourself or your listing, not arranging a buyer tour, providing buyer brokerage services. I want to go back to casual conversation. They can even ask you, do you have any listings in this area? And you can tell them about your listings without any kind of buyer's compensation. Oh, really? It's 500. Would they do any less than that? You start talking about that, you're getting in a little more into it, but still you're fine. Before you can even show them the property, but before you start talking about actual numbers and stuff, then you have to do that. But like, is a seller motivated? That kind of stuff? No. Marketing only. You're marketing yourself on your listing, not arranging a buyer tour, providing buyer brokerage services. Obviously not. Seller side access. Listing agent gives an unrepresented buyer access on behalf of the seller only, not as the buyer's representative. Okay. Only when you start, that's what we've been talking about this whole time. Only when you start actually helping them out with, what would you like to offer? What do you pre-approve for? All that kind of stuff. Then you're getting in their business. You need a form signed. Okay. Common mistakes to coach out of agents. I'll get the form signed later. No, get it signed before the tour. That's absolutely, you can't do that. Using exclusive form when a one property pre-tour form would fit better. I would say the other way around on that. No compensation plan. Failing to discuss what happens if the seller does not pay buyer brokerage compensation. That is an uncomfortable conversation to have later. That needs to be disclosed up front. Surprise at the door. We talked about that. Ignoring exclusivity. Do not solicit buyers who are already under another broker's exclusive buyer agreement. You're not going to win that typically if that ever goes anywhere. The courts always side with the consumers, first of all, but second of all, it has to be very clear to them that I know I'm going to owe Everett 3%, but yes, Anthony, I'll work with you and I'll owe you 3% also. That's not something a buyer is going to say. A buyer needs to cancel a former one. They can do that. You can have them cancel somebody else's. Don't get involved in it, but you can have them cancel somebody else's. This is not the same as approaching a listing at this point. You can have them cancel somebody else's. They want to work with you. And, typically they come to you, they're going to complain about, so-and-so, that Ryan was a jerk. And most of the time though, it's, he was never available to help me with my showings. He was never this, he didn't answer his phone. He's, whatever. So you can ask them to switch. Okay, let's do quiz time. Who's excited about this? Get your little text box ready. Get into, I'm sorry, the chat. Get into the chat. Let's do it. A buyer calls from Zillow and asks you to show 123 Main Street this afternoon. You have never met them. What do you need before the showing? Do you need nothing? Do you need a signed buyer agreement or only a pre-approval letter? Who knows that one? Let's go. Nobody's in the chat. Tammy, tell me.
Zillow will automatically send them a touring agreement.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, forget it was Zillow. It could have been from anywhere else, but thank you.
All you really do need is a touring agreement. The buyer broker is a better option, but
well, that's the pre-touring. It's the same as the pre-touring agreement. We can have our own pre-touring agreement too.
Yeah.
But it's very weak and non-committal. You need B. Great job, everybody. You need B. Excellent. A signed buyer agreement. Why? You're arranging a tour and working with the buyer. Use the most appropriate agreement before anyone tours the home. Watch out. Do not wait until after the showing. Form choice can be narrow, such as a property-specific showing or pre-touring agreement if appropriate. Okay. Do you need a signed buyer agreement? You're hosting your own listings open house. An unrepresented buyer walks in and tours the home. Do you need a buyer agreement? Yes, always. B, no, if you are acting only for the seller. C, only if they ask about the price. All right. It is B. It is B. Good job, everybody. It is B, only if you ask about price. Why? A listing agent hosting an open house for the seller is not automatically working with the buyer. Watch out. The moment you begin providing buyer services, confidential advice, negotiation strategy, or offer help, the situation changes. As you guys know, you start telling them things and now you're representing them. So they have every reasonable reason to believe so. Okay. Do you need a signed buyer agreement? A buyer is at home. You enter a property and FaceTime a live tour for them. Is that a tour? A, yes. B, no, because buyer is not physically there. C, only if buyer makes an offer. Look at you guys. Awesome. Awesome, everybody. Yes, you're right. You set out to do that. You enter a property and FaceTime a live tour for them. Obviously, you're doing that for them. Excellent job. All right, why? Live virtual tour showing. So live virtual showing where the agent enters the home on behalf of the buyer counts as a touring. Watch out, get the buyer agreement signed before the live virtual tour. Okay. Do you need a signed buyer agreement? A consumer asks, what is your commission and how do you help buyers? You explain your services at a coffee meeting. Agreement needed first? Yes. A, yes. B, no, not for general service discussion. C, only if they are pre-approved. What we got here? Lots of B guesses, lots of B guesses. And the answer is B. Excellent, everybody. Excellent. Not just for general discussion. Obviously, you can't have them sign a form before they ask you what's on the form. And that kind of was asking, what are we signing here? Well, you got to sign this first. So no, of course not before that. When you leave that meeting and you're going to show them properties, you might as well get it signed there. So why? Talking about services, process, qualifications, and compensation does not by itself require the agreement. Watch out. Use the meeting to explain the agreement so it is normal before the first showing. You do not surprise them with the first showing. You talk about the agreement, what's on it, and what it means. And again, guys, you're always selling. You're always building rapport. You're always selling. You're letting them know what you're going to do for them. You're listening to them. You're asking them, what do you guys want? And they're going to go through all this for you, right? They're going to tell you everything they want to do. And if you're listening and they feel heard, they're never going to want to need to tell anybody else that. So they want to work with you if you take care of them after that. Okay. Do you need a signed buyer agreement? A buyer wants to see one condo, but is not ready to commit to you long-term. Which form direction usually fits best? A, narrow showing pre-touring agreement. B, a 6-month exclusive agreement only. C, no agreement because it's only one property. I mean, it's only one property. All right. If you said A, you are correct. this pre-touring agreement, the showing agreement, I think, guys, I think the pre-touring agreement's worthless. Everybody's fine with the showing agreement. Just put the property on there and say you're only responsible to me if you buy this house. Okay. So, I mean, who's going to argue with that? No, I don't want to do that. Well, then, go call somebody else. Answer A narrow showing pre-touring agreement. So use a showing agreement here. If the buyer is touring with you, you need a written agreement, but it can be limited to one property or short scope if your brokerage allows it. Yeah, we don't care. You can do one for the weekend. That's probably what I would do, guys, for this. If somebody tells you, I want to see these 5 houses this weekend, say, look, okay, I'm going to just put you under this agreement just for this weekend. After this weekend, whatever, you might not want to see all these houses. You might want to see more than these houses. You might fall in love with the first house you see, but let's just do it for the weekend. And then after that, you're no longer committed to me. Unless you buy one of these houses, actually. Watch out. Do not overreach. The right size agreement builds trust and still protects the brokerage. Okay. The agent's 4-step process. Pause. Before scheduling, open a door, ask, am I working with this buyer? Let's hope so, right? So 2, explain. Frame the agreement as clarity, transparency, and professionalism. That is what the agreement is. Clarity, transparency, and professionalism. That is what it is. It's not the Wild West where we just showed them whatever and then they ghosted us. And then or they tell us, we show them. You guys remember this. You guys all cried to me about this at one point or another, cried to somebody about it. You showed somebody 12 houses, 15 houses, and they'd call you and they'd say, Tammy, I'm so sorry we wasted your time. We found something on our own this past weekend. We stopped into a new build community and we bought, from Lennar. Sorry we wasted your time, and that's why you guys used to do that. And I used to push these buyer brokerage agreements, but because we were always supposed to ask, are you working with anybody? Have you signed anything? Remember that before? Now it actually is real. So match the form to the situation, obviously, and then document. Make compensation terms, scope, and services clear before touring. All right. No surprises later. People do not like surprises from their professional help. You don't like them from your attorney. You don't like them from anybody else. You want trust. The goal is not to get a signature. The goal is to create a clear working relationship before the agent performs buyer services. All right. And that is it, guys. That is it. Do you guys have any questions on any particular part of this? Does anybody feel better? Those of you who felt like you were 5s and stuff like that, do you feel better now? Let me know in the chat. Do you feel better now after learning a little bit more? Has it created more questions or more answers? You guys can give me thumbs up. That's fine. Did it create more questions or more answers for you guys? Okay, good. Everett, give me that question. Or did you not mean to raise your hand? You're muted if you're on. Some of you raised your hand to raise your hand. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Everett, if you're trying to talk, you're muted. If you don't want to talk,
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can the buyers close without paying you if they decide they don't want to pay you?
Wait. Okay. So you have a buyer under buyer brokerage agreement.
Right.
And they want to close. We still don't have a good legal opinion on this, if they can close or not. I think they can close, but you have to sue them. Or
Right,
so in Everett's case, he's got a buyer signed at 3%, whatever, right? And he sold them the house. They bought the house. Sellers would not chip in for the 3%. So the buyer owes you 3% at closing. I would try like crazy to get that I would get a lawyer involved before closing if they told me up front they didn't want to close, because they do. Oh, that is something we could not do before, but we can do now. They absolutely owe us, just like the seller can't get out of paying the listing agreement, right? They can't get out of paying the listing agent. So I believe you could hold up a showing for that, or a closing for it, and I wouldn't mind doing it. I don't think that's unethical. The buyer owes me, but worst case, you can sue them after.
But that is going to be very difficult and costly.
Well, they have to pay you have to pay your legal fees.
Right. Okay.
But that's why I don't like that is why, though, we don't like arbitration, because arbitration, someone can do that to you and not have to pay your legal fees. That's why we don't sign the arbitration part. And you don't have to use our form that has it completely blacked out, but I would if I were you. Otherwise, you just don't initial it.
Okay. And the title company is not under no obligation to include your fees. If the buyer said no, they're not going to pay us.
Have you ever had a seller say no, that they won't pay the listing?
I've
agent?
heard that story before.
But you've heard a seller try to not pay the listing agent?
Yes, and the title company said if they decide they don't want to pay, they can't. They don't want to. They don't have to put on the closing sheet.
Okay, I would not accept that. That is a completely legal document that is 100% legal. But so to answer that, we haven't had that yet, but we probably will eventually.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions, Christina?
Hey, and I mentioned this to you, but I just wasn't sure like what the obligations were agent to agent. I had a situation where another agent lives in close proximity to some customers of mine, and they asked them about some design, because they flip houses. Anyways, I guess they gave them a consultation about how to, remodel the property and may even be continuing to kind of advise them. And they didn't realize this person was an agent. So if you have somebody that asks you for advice, what is the agent's responsibility? Do they have to disclose that they're an agent, and not just a flipper? Or what is like, if you have somebody that thinks you're just into design, like what is the agent's responsibility from a disclosure perspective?
If you're not angling for any commission, you don't have to tell anybody anything, unless you're trying to weasel in on some commission. But I don't have to tell. I don't have to tell anybody. My server at Fridays, I don't have to tell them I'm a realtor, unless I'm trying to get money. I can give them free advice. I can do whatever I want. But as long as it's free, you can do whatever you want.
If a property is under contract, like let's say, I have a property under contract now,
but what are they trying to do? What is this agent? What do you think this agent's trying to do?
I'm not sure.
If they're just giving friendly advice to a neighbor or whatever, then that's fine.
Okay.
But as long as they're not angling for whatever, they're probably building trust with them and stuff like that. If they ever flip it to I'm an agent kind of thing.
Sure.
But if they're not aggressively, obviously they're not an agent first. They're not, out there, let me buy or sell your house. So the answer to that is
I know that, like, for example, if something's under contract and somebody calls, because I've had that unfortunately where somebody called me and they're like, hey, somebody that I worked with for a while, at least advising and sending property. Oh, hey, we're buying the property that we're renting, and the owner has a realtor and they want us to deal with her, so we're dealing with her. And I had to tell her to stop calling me because she kept calling me and asking me to advise her on the contract and the deal and the offer. And I'm like, I'm not your realtor. I can't advise you. So I just was curious if that same kind of thing applied to somebody, taking an inspection report and saying, well, what's this going to cost? And, this renovation and that renovation, it's a similar thing where it can be problematic for that person if they're giving advice to a property that's under contract and their license.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to a friend thing and a professional thing. I think they're split. I don't think that person's in violation if they're sounds like you're not advising them on what you're dealing with. It sounds like they're advising them on renovations and stuff, which is not
sure. Okay.
But if they're just discussing the property and they start telling them, oh, that Christina doesn't know what she's doing, that's a different.
Right. Okay. Very cool.
Your other thing, I'll be working on that a little bit today.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Winnie.
Hi, good morning. I have a case ongoing about 3-4 months ago. I have a new listing that I just put it on the market. There's someone talk to me, he seems he doesn't have an agent, and he tells me text message and asks a lot and the interesting on the property and make offers. So they asked me for so if I can do any offer for him. I said, this is not right. Do you have an agent? He doesn't have an agent. And I asked him whether that he uses his own attorney. Before I want to represent him as a transaction broker, I can, right? I can, yes?
You can, yes.
If I have a agreement, I sign with him and as a transaction broker and with myself, seller. However, I would think I recommend him, oh, you have your own attorney and you hire your own attorney, submit an offer, it's fine. So that will protect myself, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have to have an attorney for that.
He
But
doesn't have,
if he wants an attorney, then by all means. But if he doesn't need one,
he doesn't, okay, he need to submit an offer. So I said, he asked me to do the offer, but
Well, you can do the offer.
I can submit the offer?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay, but the thing is, like, it's another going with this person. It's somewhere I want to discuss a little bit more about this weird situation, right? So my seller telling me that about 3 weeks ago, there's someone to talk to him, to ask her to sell the house directly to him. Maybe it's this guy, and this guy's the same number talked to me and same number text to her, but she didn't respond to him. And then he talked to me and with the same number and then with a different name. When he talked to the seller, he used the other name. And then he talked to me, it's like, different name. So at the time, that's why I asked him, I'm not going to represent you. You submit your offer to through the attorney, or if you don't have an agent. But the second day, after this guy talking to me during the day, and then there's an agent request a showing, the same broker, and then this same broker used 3 different agents to request a showing, and then submit a different offer. And I just feel confused without why they're going, like, what's going on with this listing. So I'm not sure, because someone told my seller about someone is living in the neighborhood is scamming, like, interesting, buying the house 3 weeks ago, talked to the seller. However, the seller get the information from one of the realtor friend. Of course, like, the other friend told him that the person has a scam, like, steal money or scam, whatever. I want to discuss with everybody if you have any experience that they steal money. They use the property sale to get the money and steal the money. I don't know. But yesterday, like, that one in a different offer, and then they disappear in the first week, different showing and 2 offers, and then there's nothing going on. And because they put one is put a full offer, one is like saying, oh, I'm going to put more money on the whoever offer more. But later on, there's nothing happened. And then yesterday, I received a phone call from the other realtor. Someone is selling this house to his prospect buyer with a different seller name on the paperwork. So I'm not sure, like, what's going on with this listing. Someone is playing around with this property.
Maybe. When I found that whoever's
Weird,
doing it,
right?
they outsmarted me because I got lost a long time ago. So Gigi says put their number in forewarn and it'll tell you exactly who it is. Is this one of the LLCs that offers on lots of stuff?
Okay. Yeah, the first offer is
okay. That's why they have all these agents and stuff, and they keep throwing in tons of. Yeah, it's a wholesaler, like Chad said. It's one of these ones that throws in, and they'll offer this ridiculous amount. They'll offer $280 on a $400,000 house, and then 3. And I know there was more than that, and then everybody will keep checking out. Everybody in their office will keep checking in on you and say, "Did you get my offer? Did you get my?" Yes, we rejected your offer already. And they'll keep asking, "Hey, did the seller change their mind?" So they do that, and then you'll have ones that'll offer full price or close to full price, and they just want to tie it up, and they might be actual buyers, like some of the direct properties and all that stuff.
This is weird.
They may actually buy, but they come in and they beat you up in the inspection.
Oh, I'm sorry maybe I didn't clarify that. That's the broker. I checked the broker request from showing time. And then the first offer they showing, because why I reject that offer is because they cannot provide the company, the request, the person who signed the contract is not under the company, it's not under the LLC manager. So I asked them to get the certification that the manager authorized, he signed the paper, but it's not the person signed. That's why I asked the agent to show me the verification, but they cannot. And then also for the proof of fund, it's just from, not from the bank. It's just from somewhere. It's weird. Like, so is there anybody else like use the LLC to buy, use their fund, steal their fund to buy the property like that? I'm not sure.
They're
Is
not,
anything
they're
happening
not
like
going
that?
to steal anything. I don't believe I don't think it's a scam per se. It's just a wholesaler or something.
It's not a wholesaler. It's a agent. It's a broker. It's agent from a brokerage, and a brokerage, even the owner of a brokerage submit another offer and use somebody else's name to submit another offer. So I'm not sure, like within like 4 days, it's happening with the same brokerage agent doing the same thing.
I don't know. Send me what you have. Just send it
Yeah,
to
I
me.
will. I will discuss with you privately. I just feel like,
Yeah. Let's do that.
okay, thank you. Mhm.
No, the legal guidelines, the legal hotline's going to be confused too. They need to see all this stuff. Christina.
Hey, and just for additional clarity, because I had this when this whole thing rolled out in 24, where a buyer called me on my listing and he's like, I don't know how it came up, but he was very clear that he did not want to be represented by anybody. So in that case, I mean, I guess we were able to open the door, discuss the facts of the property, but he's got to present his own contract. We can't advise, like, I mean, I don't know what exactly where the line is, but he was very clear he didn't want my help.
Okay. Well, you signed a no brokerage relationship with them.
Right, but what are the, I mean, like, what are we able to do? Like, is there anything crossing the line into legal advice? I mean, we open the door, we tell them the facts about the property, and then that's about it, right?
That you can answer anything that's on the MLS. That's it.
Okay, that's it. So
Yep.
if he wants comps, if he wants offer advice, if he
Oh,
needs
absolutely no comp.
help with
No, absolutely no
forms.
comps. No
Yes.
comp. Nothing that tells him what he should offer or anything
Right.
like that.
Okay, he's got to get his own forms,
He's got to do everything.
so on and so forth. Okay.
Yep. He
understood.
can hire a lawyer to help him, or he can do it himself off of whatever.
Right.
You can, you can't provide him the forms either. No, I wouldn't do anything like that.
Right. Okay. Okay.
All
Alrighty.
Any other questions? Any other questions about buyer brokerage agreement or anything else? You guys feel good about buyer brokerage agreement? That is awesome. Loving that. Anything else in the chat? Let me check the chat. John, go ahead. John, you might be muted if you're trying to talk. Bottom left hand, there's a microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, not a commercial, but just a cautionary thing. One of my listings, or my listing, I got a phone call from, and I have in the showing instructions to, of course, to hit the showing instructions button. And as you know, you get a notification that somebody has hit the showing instructions button. I did not get any notification. I had somebody call me. This deals with the world of internet. I had somebody call me that said that she wanted the code for my Sentry Lock because she did not have Sentry Lock, and she would be working through her broker to show the house. Well, the bottom line is, excuse me, I looked her up on the DBPR. She did have a license, but she was inactive and did not have access, was not listed on her broker's website. And of course, I did not give her the code to be able to open the Sentry Lock, and just wanted to make other people aware of that, because in this age of internet, I guess people are looking things up and perhaps being less than honest in their dealings with trying to show houses. But it clearly stated that her license was inactive, and it wound up not being on the broker's website even.
Right. Okay. Well, the inactive part tells you everything you need to know. Don't give her a code. Yeah, if it says either voluntary or involuntary inactive, then they're not signed up with a broker, even if they're current.
Correct. That's it.
Okay, good. Christina, sorry, I'm reading the chat. Christina, thank you, John, for sharing that.
I'm just curious. I mostly work with like warm leads, like people that I know or people that know people that I know, past customers. So I'm generally just getting a buyer broker agreement signed. I'm curious because I know like a lot of people on here will get Zillow leads or things like that. And I do get some leads from like Google and stuff like that. But are people doing the pre-touring agreement or are you doing the showing agreement? I'm just curious what everybody on the call is using or what you guys are, if it's a cold lead, are you saying, hey, because that when I do get a cold lead, that's the direction I go with a showing agreement, transitioning into a buyer broker. I generally don't do the pre-touring agreement, but I think that's what, is that what Zillow pushes? I think Zillow just wants you to go, don't check anything, go meet that stranger at that house. So
Yeah.
I was curious if people are doing the pre-touring agreement or not.
Jeanette could probably tell you this better than anyone. Jeanette, if you're there, how many pre-touring agreements are you seeing or showing agreements compared to EBBAs?
Not many at all. Everybody just sticks to the EBBA.
Okay, there you go. Not too many.
Not many at all.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. That's what I like to hear. I just think they're just, I know they're stronger. And that shows you guys are getting them signed. And I don't hear a lot of you guys complaining about getting them signed. And I love that because you guys complain. We got more complaints in the months leading up to this 2 years ago than I've got since the 2 years started. Way more. You guys were nervous. You guys were calling me, how am I going to do this? I'm so scared. Should I even bother with real estate anymore? And Tammy, has it been much worse or about the same? I mean, the market's not as great as it used to be, but
Market's worse.
yeah, well, market's about like it was 2 years ago, but yeah, but it's not hard, is it? You having a hard time with people? No. If you explain it right and don't, even some of you guys are getting them signed. If you're doing it at the front door as an ambush, you're hurting yourself. Get it done before. Let them know about the form. Let them know, this is a requirement now, blah, blah, blah. And get a little elevator speech together about what it is and what you do for them. Do it just
Tammy,
like you know what to say when you want to list their house. So do the same.
Tammy, you mentioned Zillow and pre-touring agreements. So you're saying Zillow automatically sends them pre-touring. So are you?
Yeah, I just nixed my subscription with Zillow because it really hasn't been paying off. But yes, when they send you a lead and it automatically, I can't remember if once you schedule it, they automatically email them a touring agreement, which is like a 7-day agreement. There's no commission or anything on there, I don't think. And to me, it was really kind of what I did before we even had this. I would meet people and it would just work out. And so I just went with that agreement. And then if we kept working past the 7 days, then I would do the exclusive buyer agreement. So it just, because those are such last minute, hit the button, I want to see this house. And it's just easier. They sign that touring agreement and you just go meet them. And then you explain when you're meeting them how you're going to move forward with the other agreement. It seemed to work.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a coaching session, like once in a while, tune into these free sessions that Tom Ferry does. And he was talking about one of his top producers and the guy came on and showed his BBA consultation. And it was essentially like, sign here.
Yeah.
There was like zero level of explanation on anything. And, I do an explanation. I'm not going line by line, but I do an explanation. And I'm just curious if everybody's doing the sign here, or, I mean, it's just something I'm curious about, how much level of explanation is, provided or questions are being asked, but it's interesting.
That is interesting. I'd love to know how many are just doing sign here. You're hurting yourself if you do that, though. I will tell you that. Winnie.
Hi. I have another question regarding, I have a client from Georgia, Atlanta, interested in the commercial leasing in Central Florida area. First of all, that they might buy a second generation restaurant and commercial lease. So should I sign a separate agreement with them, or just one agreement would be okay? Because they're gonna buy the business.
You don't
maybe.
need it. You don't need it for businesses. You don't need it for business or space or commercial. You don't need it for commercial or business. Only 1 to 4 unit residential housing.
Oh, only the house.
Only the housing. Only 1 to 4 units residential.
Oh, okay. So I don't need any agreement for the commercial.
Correct.
Nothing. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, commercial agents aren't doing this. They're not part of NAR. This is a NAR settlement. They're not part of NAR. They're not doing this.
Okay, so they can have a multiple agent to working on them.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Anthony.
The question I had was on the EBBA form, brokerage relationship. I know as agents, we consider ourselves transaction brokers, but on that form, it says to fill out the single agent and then consent to transition the transaction broker.
Only if you do the single agent one. There's a transaction broker one.
You can,
There's
Oh,
one
there's
that's just
another form?
transaction broker. Yeah, there's one that's just transaction broker.
oh, great. And the other question I had actually went out to everybody. I was curious on number 6 of that same form. Is anyone accepting a retainer or asking for a retainer?
Jeanette, if you're there, how many of those have you seen? I don't know if you're there. We're not seeing a lot of those. I know that.
I do actually have some agents that religiously will put a retainer, and I've seen it pay off.
Oh.
$500 for going out, showing property, and then later, my uncle's a realtor. I want to use him instead, or something along the lines like that.
At least they got something for their time. Yeah.
Very good.
That's paid immediately, Anthony. And on the form, it says it is not taken from the commission. So it's in addition to whatever commission.
Right. All right. Thank you.
All right, bud. Dari.
Hi, good morning. About rentals, do we need the EBBA or any showing agreement?
You're supposed to. Yes.
Okay.
There's a place on there for rental. Like if you go down the
Mhm.
compensation, it says for rental.
Yeah, because usually, like I
I would take a retainer on
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I usually do that for friends, so I don't charge anything, just receive the referral fees.
Mhm.
So I never know how much it would be depending on the property. So that is why I'm asking. I'm currently helping one person with that, so just to know.
I've
Thank
seen
you.
that. And you know what people are doing now? People are making money on rentals that they didn't used to. People are putting a full month's rent in there. They're putting,
Oh, really?
they'll put, people are putting $2,500 in
Oh,
the
yeah.
compensation box for rentals. They're doing a $500 retainer and a $2,000 payment or something like that.
Oh,
So it's.
But even if she put like $2,500 and chose to charge them nothing, she's covered, right? Because you can't exceed the amount on there.
Yeah,
So
you can let them. You can let them
put
go.
an amount on there and not take anything, but if you
Right.
get something, you're covered.
Right.
okay. Oh, that's good. Like, it's just like I usually work with friends, not that much, but I know that eventually they're going to buy something. So, I just don't charge. I just ask for the referral fee for the other side. So,
Mhm.
but that's good to know. Thank
Yep,
you.
yep. You don't have to pursue the money. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Jaime or Jamie.
Hey, good morning.
Morning, bud.
Hey, actually, 3 quick questions. The first one, I think I just heard it applies to leases also. Like if you're looking for someone for a rent, you want to get the buyer agreement.
For rent, but not commercial. Yeah.
Correct. My second question is, if an investor wants to buy a single family home, would it be the name of the person or the LLC or both?
Okay, there's no shenanigans on it. It says on there, you or anyone related to you. So I can't have a husband and wife, and the wife signs the form, the husband doesn't, and then they buy a house under the husband and say they don't owe you. That can't happen. Or they start an LLC and say they don't know you. You're covered on that. It says says something on there. The language on there is built to handle that.
So we want to go in with the name.
Yeah, go with the name.
Okay.
Yeah, go with the name. Yeah. You definitely, you don't want to go with the LLC because
Okay.
one LLC might not be related to the other, but it's all covered. I mean, that one would work in your favor in court. Is
Perfect.
if
And
they try
then-
to use a different LLC. If I start a new LLC instead of the one I gave you and buy it, you're still dealt with me. You showed me the properties. I still owe you.
Absolutely. Then the last quick one is if where's it slipped my mind here? You mentioned that this was a NAR thing, but earlier you had said that it was a company and then obviously a law. If I'm not technically a realtor, is this still, should we still be doing it if you're not a realtor, just obviously a real estate
No, I know
agent?
you're doing commercial stuff. No, your real commercial stuff is not. If you're not a realtor, you don't have to abide by it either.
Even if I show up residential home, like we had mentioned, where you might
I
come
would just
across
do
those.
it. Yes, do it because they need it. So yes, do it. And we're
All
gonna
right, so we
require
want to do it on
It's
residential.
on our
Okay,
checklist if you do it. Yes, we don't care. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
And there's no reason not to get it, guys. It's a sales tool. I was telling you guys to get this before it was a rule. Christina.
Yeah, but if you're in commercial, people generally have an agreement with their clients before they're showing them the properties anyway, right?
Not really. No.
Okay.
No, there's no buyer for commercial. There's no buyer agreement. No. A lot of times, okay, so like big corporations will have an agreement with a big broker. So somebody, let's take a nice up and coming company like Toys R Us. They'll have an agreement with CB Richard Ellis or something for national representation. But most 95% of commercial deals, there's no buyer's agreement.
Okay.
There's listing agreements, and they're all different and they're all strong. The commercial is the Wild West. Commercial is when I say Wild West, if they have a problem, they actually go to court. They go to a real judge. If there's procuring cause or something like that, it's in a way it's a lot more fair than residential real estate, than the board system.
People are generally explaining to their commercial clients like, "Hey, you're responsible for my compensation."
Well, and the thing, this is one thing you might have learned in real estate school too and forgotten, because most of it you just want to forget, is if they have a certain amount of assets. In commercial, you're assumed to be sophisticated. So they have what's called sophistication. You might remember this. If someone had over $1 million in assets, I went to real estate school so long ago, it was probably $100 in assets. But now if they have over $1 million in assets, you do not have the same fiduciary duties and stuff like that. I'd have to go back to school to learn that, but they were considered a sophisticated buyer, and you didn't have to do the same level of service for them.
Okay, so people having that discussion
That's
at all,
commercial.
or?
Commercial deals. It's commercial deals with clients with assets over $1 million or something like that.
And if they don't have assets over $1 million, are
So
people
if they're
just
doing it to get a
explaining
nail
it to them?
salon or something, and they're not rich
Right.
or whatever, you
Right.
still have all the same duties and stuff. But just always treat everybody great. Don't worry about it. But there were certain things that you had to do that you didn't have to do for those clients.
But generally speaking, like the seller of a commercial building, or if you're, like you said, you're looking for a lease for a restaurant or something, you're explaining to your restaurateur client, like, hey, you're going to be responsible for my compensation. Generally speaking, the seller is not going to.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, you're going to put in your LOI, you're going to ask for that. And a lot of times they're going to tell you, no.
And then my other question is just regarding rentals. I had somebody that wanted a rental listing entered, and I mistakenly agreed to accept payment once it was rented, and then they just pulled it off the market, and I had a cancellation fee, and they just have ghosted me and have not paid me. So I'm curious, like if I assist somebody with a rental, like finding a rental, like, hey, I want to rent this apartment, since there's not a closing, how do we ensure that we get paid? Is it just, we're out of luck if we don't?
Well, the landlord should be paying. Typically, the landlord's going to offer a referral fee or a lease fee or whatever. But I really do recommend getting a retainer if you can on a rental. But no, you can take them to small claims court, whatever. I mean, you've fulfilled your obligations. You can take them to small claims court, but they can't.
But that's the option. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we have a $500 fee and they're paying $50, if we want that $450, we have to take them to small claims court.
Correct. If they refuse to pay you, yeah.
And then in terms of if we get a retainer, I'm assuming we give them the brokerage's wiring information for that, correct?
Yeah, they can do a check. They can do whatever. Yeah, we'll process it.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. Tammy.
I find when I get like some random person that I don't know and they need a lease and I tell them, oh, that's fine. I'm happy to help you. My fee is $500. They're like, oh, okay, thank you. They really never go on. People don't want to pay you to help them find a rental.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I'm like, okay, that's fine with me because and it's like, and I'll show you for 500, we'll do 3 properties. Anything more than that, then, it's going to be additional and they don't
Mhm.
ever go forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you guys know this. It's the curse of the realtors that where, oh, you're a realtor? I got a friend you got to meet, and you're like all excited, and they're like, yeah, they want to rent something up by, and you're like, oh no, they can go up to $2,000 a month, and you're like, okay, we can find them something. And they're like, oh, they want to rent, and you're like, oh. Okay.
Or better yet, they're like, I had one person be like, oh, you got to meet my friend, and he was just he was a broker owner. It's like, you guys can co-list my property for me, like with a different company. I was like, well,
Yep.
okay, thank
There
you.
you go.
You guys should have lunch and network. Great, thanks.
That's great. Any other questions or comments before we go? Anything for anybody? Understood. That's for Tammy. She does the same. It's a filter to keep out the no payers. But yeah, it's so funny. And people give you a renter and they're like they're doing you the biggest favor in the world. Yeah, you owe me one. Yeah, thanks. All right, guys. You guys have been wonderful. And hopefully you learned more about this. We've been seeing a lot of problems with it. Jeanette yells at me about it all the time, about how you guys need to get your buyer brokerage agreements. Why are these people not doing their buyer brokerage agreements right? Leaving them blank, leaving the compensation blank. She's talked to some agents who said, oh yeah, I didn't know what it would be, so we left it blank, or whatever the seller wants to offer, I guess I'll do. That's not how the form works. The whole point, we went over this very distinctly. I should have asked another question. Here's a question for you guys. So you got somebody in there at 3% and you take them and they, lo and behold, you're happy to hear they want to go to this beautiful new community at Pulte Homes or whatever, who's offering 3% plus a $5,000 bonus. Now what do we do? We get our 3% plus $5,000, or what do we do here? Yes, Tam. Christina, I'll go with you first if you're answering the question. If not, we'll hold.
I had a different.
Okay, Tammy, let's answer, and then we'll come back to you, Christina.
Oh, you'd have to get an amended buyer broker agreement, but it's a little awkward to say, in my opinion, hey, they're going to pay me $5,000 more dollars. Or you can say, you know what, they're offering $5,000. We can split that, but I need you to, we need to re-sign this agreement. I'll give you, we can give you 25 and I'll do 25. I don't know. It's kind of awkward.
That is where the buyer brokerage agreement has helped buyers in that, because you do have to modify. You have to do a modification to the buyer brokerage agreement, and you have to go back and say, look, but what you need to do is, if it's true, not if it's not true, but a lot of times it's because you've sold your third Pulte house of the year or something.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And so you have to say, look, this is my third one, so I get a bonus. I'll give you guys $1,000,
Yeah.
or whatever. I appreciate you doing this. I'll split this with you a little bit. Since it's my third one, I'll give you a third of it, but I'm keeping it, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So sign this. I mean, honestly, if I were the buyer and you told me that story, I mean, I'd sign it for $100, So, I mean, it's more than I had before, and good for you.
Right.
It's your third house you've sold there. I'm happy with the house, etc. But not everybody's reasonable. But some people I'd sign a form that doesn't affect me for $100. I don't care, So, but $1,000 for sure.
Yeah.
Give you guys another $1,000 towards your closing costs if you do this. Got it. Thank you. So yes, that's the correct answer. Modification to listing agreement. And yes, it is an uncomfortable conversation to tell buyers. I know I'm making $21,000
Well, it's uncomfortable if you want to
already.
keep it's uncomfortable if you want to keep the whole thing and not offer them anything.
Right, right. Well, still,
think,
it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's also, for me, it's uncomfortable to give away thousands of dollars too. So that's uncomfortable. But yeah, you're right. So that's what you have to do, and it is an uncomfortable situation. But there you go. Christina.
So Rider FF is sufficient for buyer for compensation. Rather, I know you don't like. I don't think you like GG, right? So if I just do a new contract and I have FF.
Oh, you're throwing letters out there. I hate GG. GG doesn't do anything except make a bigger deal about us fighting over commission. That's all GG does.
Yeah.
Let me find.
FF is the one where it's a newer one that says like, hey, we're
To the buyer's credit.
It's about, but that's about credits going over the allowable amount. Is the idea of that, right?
No, not as I understand.
Credit
it.
related to buyer's broker compensation. Hold on one second. One of these is just about that, pretty much.
It has a line that mentions what happens if they are not allowed to. That they're gonna give them a credit specifically for your.
This is okay. This is a
compensation.
credit related to it. So this can only be buyer brokerage. Sorry, it can only be seller. It can't be. So if Tammy has a 6-3 agreement with her listing, then this doesn't relate to that. This is about the seller doing it. This is about when I call Tammy and I say, what are they offering? Or I'm sending in my offer. I say, where's the compensation agreement? They're not offering compensation. So I'm going to put that here. They're going to give me 3%. They're going to give the buyer 3% to pay me. But if Tammy says they're offering 2.5%, then I don't use this because she's going to have a compensation agreement.
So if I'm putting in an offer and I have a compensation agreement, my BBA with my buyer, and I'm just submitting it with the FF, it's still putting it in writing like, hey, they're paying the buyer or the buyer in the explicit.
Yeah, but not if somebody has an agreement to pay you in their listing agreement. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. So this to me, the only reason to use this form is because of that one line. It's because of this line. That's the only reason to use this form. Because there's a seller to buyer's broker and there's a seller's broker to buyer's broker. That's all you need to get paid. You're doing it this way through the buyer, and there's no
right. But so if I submit an offer and I submit it with FF to I have the buyer and I'm submitting an offer to somebody's seller and I just have FF and my BBA. Is that all I need for the office? And and they sign it saying,
yeah, this is a buyer's compensation form. Yeah.
Okay, so that's sufficient. You guys don't require anything if I have a 3% with my buyer.
This is fine. This is
and
fine
I submit
for this.
FF.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys don't require anything else. Okay.
No, this is
cool.
Fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is fine.
Do you have a preference for anything else, or is there anything that you guys?
Yeah,
prefer?
just a regular compensation form is what I prefer. But this one, this one's the only reason to use this is if it might go over what they can get, and that would be a lender-driven thing saying, yeah, if we call this a compensation, but see the problem with calling it a credit is it counts against what the buyer can take. If the seller just pays you directly, it doesn't count against what the buyer can take. That's not a credit to the buyer. That's just paying you directly right off the hood.
So do you want me to have a compensation?
And that doesn't affect the buyer. If I can only take 3% because of my loan, you didn't just eat it all up with this. Now I can get that new roof or get the new whatever, right? So you don't need this if you just do the seller to buyer's broker, because that just takes it right out of proceeds right to Florida Realty Investments.
So do you want me to have any other forms?
I only want you to use this if the seller is paying, and it might affect the other credits, the buyer's thing.
Otherwise, you would prefer that I use
just the seller to buyer's broker, or seller's broker to buyer's broker, which would be that's the cleanest one. That's the old school 6-3, right? But if you call Tammy and Tammy says, I can't get this seller to offer anything, I'm sorry, then you're going to want to do that. If you want to do the seller to buyer broker, you can write it on the contract. You can do whatever you want, but this one is only time I can see to use it is if it's going to affect the credits that the buyer can take. But if you do just seller to buyer's broker, then it's not going to affect the credits. It doesn't go through the buyer.
Right. So, but this will still cover us in order to be paid.
Yes, as far as we're concerned, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if I have this,
Jeanette's going to ask me about this, and I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine.
So, ideally, you want us to have the other compensation form as well.
Yeah, it just makes more sense not even as your director of sales, but as a real estate person. That this one's only good if they have to do a compensation. I don't know why you wouldn't do seller to buyer's broker, because that does not go through the buyer.
Okay.
That's the seller paying you for real estate services.
Okay.
Any other, if they insist on doing it as a credit, then I guess. But that's fine if that's what you've got and they did it that way and it didn't affect the buyer. If it did affect the buyer and they still paid the balance of it, that's fine. See, it says the balance of credit will be paid by seller directly to buyer broker. That why not just do the whole thing like that's just a form too. Okay. Any other questions? And that, by the way, the seller to buyer's broker, you can put in with your contract. If Tammy says the seller's not offering a commission at this time, whatever, then you can put that in your contract with her as and you got to market FF. That's why I don't like doing that. I'd rather you just write it in additional terms, but you got to make sure you click the button for FF in the attached addenda. Okay.
I thought that
Otherwise,
you
if
know,
something's not clicked in the bottom of the as is, where it says attached addenda or whatever it
Mhm.
says down there for all the thing where you put your appraisal contingent, you click all the boxes for FHA appraisal, whatever you got.
Mhm.
You got to click your FF if you included the FF, and that's how you're getting paid, because
Mhm.
a seller can sign that or sign the contract and not sign this if it wasn't checked on there.
Mhm. And gosh, I was going to ask another question that's slipping my mind. Okay, well, there it went. Never mind.
It'll come back. All right, guys. Any other questions before we go? All right, awesome. Thank you all so much for coming. I love that you guys showed up for this one better than some of the other ones that we've had. So I appreciate you guys coming in. I'm glad it was a good class for you guys. I'm glad there was a lot of interest in it. Hopefully we'll get all these things straightened out. So thank you so much, guys, for coming in. Get out there and do business. Use this as a sales thing. It is not a negative thing. We thought it was going to be a negative thing. It has been great for you guys. Use it as a sales. Use it as a trust building thing, not a trust tearing down mechanism. All right. So build your trust with your clients and do it. They love to have someone working with them for them, someone who's going to help them make a plan, someone who's going to help them buy the house. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for everything. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.